As many people within our community are aware, every year the Rotary Club recognizes a volunteer within our community. Someone who has contributed to the way of living here in the Neepawa area and enhanced our community. And this year, the Rotary Club, the membership, decided to change the criteria a little bit in that we wanted to recognize frontline workers, those that are, through their activities, are keeping all of us safe. And this year, we chose Heather Todoruk, owner of Harris Pharmacy. And it's an extraordinary year with COVID-19. And Heather and her team here at Harris Pharmacy have gone above and beyond the call of duty in order to keep all of us safe. A Paul Harris Fellowship is a recognition by Rotary International of people who have given of themselves to service. And the certificate, if I may, reads, the Rotary Foundation, Heather Todoruk, is hereby named a Paul Harris Fellow in appreciation of tangible and significant assistance given for the further of better understanding and friendly relations among peoples of the world. So of course that is very significant this year, being the weird year that it is. So on behalf of the Rotary Club, Heather, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
And for keeping us all safe. And along with the certificate comes, now I wish I could say that it was pure gold, although it looks that way. It's a pin that if you are displaying that, any Rotarian will know that you are a Paul Harris Fellow, and we appreciate your service to all of us.
Thank you. I'll be proud to wear it on my lab coat. Thank
Excellent.
you very much. Thank you for the recognition. So I'd really like to thank the Rotary Club for recognizing myself, but it's not just myself involved in this pandemic. And this year, as frontline workers, there's so many people involved, from grocery workers to hospital workers to my staff, just people in general who have gone above and beyond, doing everything they can to keep our people of Manitoba and of the world safe, from delivery drivers, truck drivers. I mean, it's an endless list of people who have done things that they probably never thought they would ever do in their lifetime, but they have, and they've stepped up and they've accomplished things that have kept us safe and have improved our society and made us all one big group, whether no matter what your socio-economic status may be, we're all in this together. We all need to protect each other. We all need to help each other out. And I'm honored that I have been recognized, but I think that there are so many people in our community and all over the country that deserve recognition, and I just am proud to receive this, and thank you again.
G'day. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Neepawa, it is my pleasure to bring recognition to the entire staff here at the Country Meadows Personal Care Home. As I mentioned earlier, every year the Rotary Club recognizes volunteers within the community, and usually our criteria is based around their efforts within our community and surrounding area to make life in Neepawa better. Obviously this has been a very weird year, and our club decided this year to change the criteria slightly, and we decided to recognize frontline workers. And through our discussions, it became quite apparent that the people here at Country Meadows have done an absolutely outstanding job in keeping probably the most vulnerable sector of our community safe. And I think I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I think there has not been one case of COVID-19 here at the facility, and I think that is absolutely outstanding, and it's a testament to the effort that every one of you have put in to keep our elderly population safe. So on behalf of the Rotary Club, I'll just read the recognition. Oops, it's always got to have that little. It's the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International Certificate of Appreciation, presented to Country Meadows Personal Care staff, the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, and all those who benefit from the Foundation's educational, humanitarian, and cultural programs appreciate your generous support. So again, on behalf of the Rotary Club, thank you very much, all of you, for the work that you have done, always, but certainly has come to a highlight this year during COVID-19.
So I'm Kendra Work, the Team Manager of Country Meadows, and thank you very much. This is greatly appreciated. This year has been extremely challenging, and we chose here today sort of a representative from each department, ranging from the nurses, health grades, maintenance, dietary staff, housekeeping. Our director is also here today too, Pam Goulet, who has just started in her new role, and she's been a huge support as well. Activity department, who did I miss? Our CCC as well. And to be honest, this place would not have been so successful without the leadership that we've had here and all the dedicated staff. So many challenges, but we have overcome them so far. So thank you so much. It's nice to be recognized. And thank you to the community and all the families and caregivers too that come and have supported us this last year. So
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome. This is Rotary Update, and today we're going to talk about the Rotary Foundation and the Paul Harris Fellowships. My guests today are Wayne Jacobsen and Glen Cummings. Wayne is the president of the Rotary Club, and Glen is the foundation chair for the Rotary Club. And welcome, gentlemen, to Rotary Update. Wayne, this is a special day for the Rotary Club.
It is so. Well, 70 years ago today, the Neepawa Rotary Club was chartered. And we started off meeting in the fall of 1950 as a subgroup of the Meadows Club. And on March the 15th, 1951, we became recognized as a chartered club for Rotary International. So happy birthday to all Rotarians.
Yes, I think they're all gone. I think Jack Thomas was probably the last one to go, but we had an awful lot of those members that filled out their whole life span in the Rotary Club. Guys like Jack Thomas and Bill Gwynn and Roy, yeah. Roy wasn't in the old
charter.
No,
okay.
Not a charter member.
Sorry?
No, he came later. Glen, we're going to talk about the Rotary Club and the Rotary Foundation. Tell us a little bit about the Rotary Foundation and like when it started and what was the purpose of it?
Well, the foundation was the basis of the foundation goes back to 1905 when the Rotarians were first began organizing themselves. But the fund and the Paul Harris part of the fund were more recently established. The foundation today is the basis for the organizations around the world. We have over 200 countries that are represented, 35,000 local Rotary clubs, and throughout the years, it has been the basis upon which Rotary collects and funds the monies that are needed for operations. Started with a much smaller group and now is organized around the world. But it's professionally run and very well known around the world, but the organization itself is the product of all of the various clubs around the world.
Great. Anyway, Wayne, what makes the Rotary Foundation a little bit different from most other foundations? We know that every club and almost every business nowadays has a foundation of some kind. What makes Rotary Foundation different?
Well, I guess to understand that question, the first thing we would look at is who we are. And anyone that's been involved in organizational development knows that your mission statement and your vision statement define who you are. Your mission statement, who you are now, and I will read it. Rotary International's mission statement is, we provide service to others, promote integrity and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. In our vision statement, what we would like to be moving forward reads as, together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So quite literally, we, as Glen mentioned, we have people all over the world who are involved in projects that are focused in 7 areas. Well, 6 right now, but in July of this year, a 7th is being added. So those 7 areas of focus are preventing disease, such as our Polio Plus program, providing clean water, promoting education, developing local economies, keeping mothers and children safe, promoting peace throughout the world, and the new one is the environment.
And we've been involved in 6 of those with our local Rotary Club. I'm just thinking of them as you went through them, and we've been involved in 6 avenues around the world in those areas.
The evolution of Rotary is an example of how people who are prepared to work and concentrate on an idea can do amazing things. The fellow who started the fund that I should have mentioned a minute ago had a very memorable name by the name of Archie Clump, and he started with about $27 and a little bit of change. I threw it on the table at a Rotary convention and said I wanted to start an international fund. And he was one of the early presidents of Rotary. And here we are today where Rotary International's able to administer $88 million worth of funds annually.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, that reminds me of a little story? The one thing I wasn't supposed to say. But I'll be very short. Tony Otten walked into a Rotary meeting, one of the first ones that I was at, and he pulled $500 out of his pocket and he put it on the counter and he said, Charlie Nicholson deserves a Paul Harris Fellow. He's been to all the Rotary conferences around the world and so on and so forth. And he says, I'm putting down $500, now you turkeys put around the other 500. And that's the words he used. And in no time, there was $1,000 on the thing, and Charlie Nicholson got the first Paul Harris Fellow that Tony put out. So anyway, Glen, how is the Rotary Foundation funded? We were talking about funding it. What are some of the ways that it's funded?
Well, primarily from memberships and donations by members around the world. And also Rotary has established itself as a very responsible charity. And there are many areas where people leave large endowments to Rotary, which is another source of significant revenue for the organization. And those are the funds that keep the projects of Rotary going. But the management is all very professionally done, which is important. Administrative costs are low. And the fund, well, we talk about the fund as the basis of how Rotary is able to project the response to various needs that we're involved with. But being a Rotarian doesn't mean that you are required to put large amounts of money on the table. The membership is all we really need to begin with. People get involved and have the opportunity to share in the exchange of ideas and the opportunity for fellowship, which was the original concept of Rotary, where like-minded people could get together, look at what they thought they could do for the community, look at what was available to be needed to be repaired in some of the international issues. And frankly, one of the reasons that I personally wanted to become a Rotarian was because Rotary's always been a leader in dealing with and trying to solve some of the requirements of a local community, and the responsibilities of keeping a community going has always been an important part of our local club.
Yep. Looking at the foundation, Wayne, often foundations are criticized for the large portion of the money that's given to the foundation being used for admin. And Rotary has not been criticized for that. Give us, some input into how it is funded. How does the administration of the foundation get funded?
Well, as Glen mentioned, this last fiscal year, Rotary is administering $88 million worth of funds through the foundation, and historically they have provided over $4 billion to projects throughout the world. So we're talking significant dollars. And what makes us different is that when you make a donation to Rotary, whether it's as an individual or as an endowment, Rotary takes that money and it deposits it directly into investments. So it doesn't touch any of the principal whatsoever. The principal goes into those investments for a 3-year period. And then that sum of money is withdrawn. So let's just say it's a $10,000 donation. 3 years later, the $10,000 is taken out and it directly goes to projects. The interest that it has garnered over that 3-year period is what Rotary uses to manage the projects. Well, historically, that probably turned out to be 100% of the principal going to the various projects around the world. But of course, interest in this day and age isn't quite what it used to be. So Rotary does use some of the principal, and according to Rotary International, in the 2018-2019 fiscal year, 8% was used for administration, which for foundations is a very, very low number. And as a matter of fact, there is an independent agency in the world called Charity Navigator that assesses all charities in the world and gives them rankings. And for the last 12 years in a row, Rotary International, the foundation, has received the highest ranking from Charity Navigator that is possible to be received. So that's a pretty high.
Certainly is. It certainly is. Just another little addendum to Wayne's. Guys like Bill Gates matches our donations to Polio Plus 2 to 1 to a maximum of, I think, $1 million.
Yeah. So
that obviously there's a good donor to help us out, and give us some examples of the projects covered by the Rotary Foundation which have life-changing on the world stage. Glen, it's up to you. Tell us.
Well, I'd like to add to what you just pointed out, Ivan. The Bill Gates Foundation has been cooperating with Rotary International, funding vaccination programs to stop polio around the world. And there's a lot of the younger generation, including myself, that really didn't have the appreciation of the devastation that polio causes. People can be crippled and maimed as a result of the disease, and Rotary has now been involved in helping with vaccination programs around the world with the support of Bill Gates Foundation, and in fact with support of various governments around the world that have also contributed in cooperation with Rotary. And the value of having Rotary involved means that in some parts of the world, the vaccination routine, the ability to get out into the countryside to get people to come for vaccinations, to be involved in vaccinations, falls back to the fact that there's Rotarians around the world who are willing to be involved, and the Rotary organization is well enough respected and known around the world in places that we might not normally think about, that the vaccination distribution is gone very well, to the fact where that Rotary ad where we say we're this close to getting polio eliminated is now down to a handful around the world of known cases of the polio virus. And if we continue, we should be able to see the end of polio and the crippling effects that it has around the world, and should be totally eliminated if the program continues the way it is.
In fact, we hit a milestone this year with Africa being polio-free for the first time, and which is great because they had a lot of problems in some of the back countries in Africa getting the polio vaccine out to some of these places. Glen, can you think of any, Wayne, can you think of any other projects that strike you as really projects that come to your heart?
Well, obviously Rotary has got tons of operations on the go throughout the world, but the one that comes to my mind, mainly because our club is quite involved in this project, is known as the Ripple Effect, and it's a project that's in Hoya Verde, Guatemala, and Guatemala, I'm not sure exactly when the Civil War took place there, within the not too distant past, where many people fled into the hills. And Hoya Verde is of a community of about 300 homes that came about because of that migration into the mountains. But there was no infrastructure in Hoya Verde to speak of, and the Rotary clubs in our district, which is Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Northern Ontario, are very involved with the Rotary Club in Guatemala Norte and in Guatemala. And in partnership, we have built a new school, classrooms. We provided infrastructure for that school. In addition to that, we've, I think the municipal government did build the sewage treatment facility, but Rotary has been very involved in building new washroom facilities throughout the community. Right now there are 50. Now each individual home doesn't have a washroom and washing facilities inside, but we are building concrete facilities that provide sanitation and water for the homes. And to date, there's been 52 built, and the project has been announced to build another 52. So, like our club, the people of our community are making a difference in a place in the world that is greatly disadvantaged.
And we even sent one of our Rotarians to help them out for several weeks as far as the school was concerned.
Ron Nordstrom went down to assist in education, and they actually let him back into the country again, so
yes.
he's back here.
Oh,
but we have a very first-hand involvement with
yes,
that project.
We do. Yeah. Glen, let's look at the Paul Harris Awards, get them into the picture, because the Paul Harris Awards have been a very important part of our Rotary Club. And tell us what the Paul Harris Award is, and how it's important in the foundation.
Well, the Paul Harris Award is a program named after the gentleman who started Rotary in the early 1900s. His name obviously was Paul Harris, and he during the year that he became president of the association, he worked diligently to try and expand the Rotary idea into other cities and across America, actually. And since then, he worked as a Rotarian until he passed in the late 1949. But he had a vision that he stuck with all his life, and Rotarians in the early 50s decided that was the name they wanted to put on a program to honor him. And in so doing, what they established was a recognition program that people who provide $1,000 to Rotary International, or a club that provides that much money to Rotary International, will receive some recognition in the name of Paul Harris. Now, the Neepawa Club has over 200 Paul Harris members who have either been members through donations that they have made, but also members because people have made donations to and wanted them to be honored in recognition of the work that they had done in the community and for the neighborhood. And the name Paul Harris will go on for a long time because it is a very prestigious award for those who have received it, and it is intended to recognize people for supporting the fund internationally, and the funds are used, as we have just described, for the projects that are important to Rotary International.
Wayne, tell us how the Paul Harris award is presented in our particular club, like how, why is it presented and how is it presented, sort of thing. I mean, just fill us in a little bit on the club's involvement in the Paul Harris Fellow.
Well, the club has recognized for many years that we could serve two purposes. One, supporting the foundation through the donation of $1,000 US. But at the same time, we recognize that there are other people within our community who provide volunteer services or have had an enormous impact on the quality of life here in Neepawa. So we could, as they say, I guess that wouldn't be proper now. We could serve two purposes at one time, and that is the support to foundation, but also a recognition. So every year, our club has tried to identify someone in the community who has given of themselves. And so what we do is the club donates that $1,000 US to Rotary Foundation in the name of the individual that we are recognizing. And that individual is then honored and presented with a Paul Harris Fellow and a pin, just to say thank you very much for what you do for our community. We also have another Paul Harris Award that we give annually or semi-annually, and that's, as you mentioned, Tony Otten put some funds into perpetuity in order to support donations to the foundation. So when we have sufficient interest from those funds, the club then identifies a club member who has gone above and beyond the call of duty, and we present that particular member with a Paul Harris Fellowship in recognition of that. And then this year, we changed things up a little bit. As a club, given the unusual and extreme circumstances of COVID-19, this year our club decided to change the focus a bit, and the individual and the community award we wanted to present to frontline workers. So the individual award went to Heather Todoruk, of course, owner of Harris Pharmacy. And that facility had challenges of its own throughout this year, but they are frontline workers in supporting people's health in our community during this time of COVID-19. And then the community award we presented to the entire staff out at Country Meadows Personal Care Home. They are tasked with protecting the most vulnerable part of our community, our elderly. And I'm very proud of them, and I don't think this is anything new, but we recognize the fact that the care home did not have one case of COVID-19 to date. And I think that is a huge testament to the quality of service they provide there.
And if someone like Wayne Jacobsen or Ivan Traill wanted to have a pin to put on their lapel because it's with a little pride, we could donate $1,000 to the foundation and get a pin for ourselves too, couldn't we?
Certainly, yes. And that's a personal support
Yes.
of the work that Rotary does throughout the world.
Glen, let's look closer to home. And how many awards have been presented by our local club?
Actually, we're close to 200 Paul Harrises in the lifetime of our club. The club has evolved over the years from the core group of business people that organized it, and as Wayne said, that we're celebrating our 70th anniversary. We're now reaching out to more new members. I'm myself a relatively new member of the organization, and I would have to say that I'm quite proud of the fact that the organization has become more flexible, more open to changes in formats, and has maintained what I always thought was a priority as well within my own mind, the work that we can do for the community itself, where we live.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was going to ask Wayne. That's a lot of money, Wayne. At 200 times 1,000, that's $200,000. And much of that money that we donated to the foundation was doubled and tripled by the foundation doubled it, and when I went to Belize, it was tripled by the federal government, and so that's it became a really important thing. But locally, what has it done for us locally as far as as you said, saying thank you to the group, but it's also done a lot as far as for the pride of the people. We've had lots of Rotarians who have donated and made special note of people who have done things in the community as well that went over and above the club.
Yes, well, maybe I'll get Glen to sort of talk about some of the local projects that we've taken part in. But for me, I think the real true value is born in the question I think many people have, what difference can I make? You know, I'm Wayne Jacobsen, I'm sitting in Neepawa, Manitoba, and these are world issues. Well, if we look at the work of Rotary International and the foundation, by supporting the foundation, I know, I've seen it firsthand, that I am making a difference in this world, whether it's providing fresh water to people in Africa, or sanitation to people in Guatemala, or helping to eradicate polio. The work that I do in this community and all of us working together is making a difference throughout the world. And I think that really gives value to becoming and being a member of Rotary.
Absolutely, thank you.
And education, whether it's local or international, has always been a priority with Rotary and with our club. An example of which is we always provide a certificate or a scholarship support for high school graduate.
Absolutely.
In our local town.
I know that our time is winding down here, but I want Glen to give us a few examples of some of the members of the local volunteers, etc., in the community that have made a difference and that Rotary has decided to give a Paul Harris Fellow to. I know one you're going to mention, and I want to fill this in because I was very close to the person. I was with him when he ran the Summer Games in 1976, and we gave him a Paul Harris Fellow. He was at the time living in Toronto. He flew out to get his Paul Harris Fellowship. He wasn't going to come until he told some of his buddies that he was going to get presented with a Paul Harris Fellow, and they went overboard to think that what an award that was and so on, and he decided he had to fly home.
Well, they were speaking of Greg Dunn, who's
Yes.
one of several people who are on the list that I made of people who have contributed mightily to within the community, but not because they're Rotarians, but because we as Rotarians wanted to honor them for the work that they have done. Also, Maureen Cox and Ann Koharski were both honored. Same process. Alan and Helen Drysdale, two people who've worked long and hard for the community. Jean Bocart and Laurie Lewandowski, those are examples of people in the community at large that we have tried to honor through the Paul Harris program.
Any that you can add to the group? I noticed you gave us the two that from this year, but anything else you want to add?
Well, I mean, out of the 208, I don't even know if I'd want to start, because you know how it is. You miss this one and you go, oh, why didn't I think of that person? But obviously there are a significant number of people in our community that we have recognized.
Okay. Just to end things off here, though, I want to, and I'll give you first shot at it. It's some of the projects on a personal level that you think were really important, because there's some of the projects that are really tear-jerking when you think about the work that they've done in some of the areas, and some of the local people that we've had that work in Africa and places like that.
Well, as a matter of fact, it was just written about in one of the Rotary magazines, and that is the work that Rotary is doing in isolated parts of Peru, where we're supporting the cost for optometrists and ophthalmologists to go into these isolated areas and conduct vision testing and providing glasses And in some cases, I think the article said 150 eye operations. Doesn't matter whether you're, in the jungle and don't have two nickels to rub together or not. We support their health. So I think that's pretty special.
Yeah.
And there's just so many projects like that, ongoing throughout the world.
Wayne, I was in India when Doctors Without Borders walked into India and they did 250 cataract operations in one day. And the people, after they got the operation, went and sat on their heels. They blinded, of course, because they had their eyes closed, on their heels in a football field. And the football field looked like it had 250 bags of potatoes. That's what they looked like. They were all sitting like that with that dun-colored stuff on. The most dramatic thing I have ever seen in my life. 250 people just got cataract operation, and this was their recovery room, was the football field.
Life-changing.
Oh, yes. You must have.
Well, I have a more domestic life-changing event that I would like to talk about, and that is the exchange program that Rotary International and Neepawa Rotary in particular has been involved in for years, where young students from here get an opportunity to stay with Rotarians in other locations around the world, and likewise students from those other areas where the Rotary Club sponsors them, and they come to Canada and come to our schools here. And I've had some experience with the young people who've been involved in that, not so much when they were here, but over the years I've seen and talked to some of them who were great beneficiaries of that experience. It changed their outlook on life, it changed their approach. It made them so they were in a position to be leaders in their communities when they went home, because they understood the value of community service, the value of friendships, which is very much part of the Rotary activity. And that's an example, I think, of where we are still focused on the human side of the Rotary program.
Well, I think we're going to leave it to that. If I had my one little thing, I'm going to cap it off with, Pat and I spent 4 months down in Belize building community health posts, and that was pretty life-changing. Like when you realize that many of the places that we went to up in the hills had nothing. They were family units of maybe 10 huts covered with thatch roofs and so on. Walk in there and build a 2-car garage basically as a community health post for these people, get somebody to man it, to be the community worker. It became the center of the community. It was supposed to be a health post, but they met there. They did everything in this place. And anyway, we'll leave it at that. And thank you, gentlemen, very much for this. I think it's important that people understand that Rotary isn't just a little organization in town, that we do things outside. I hope people are very aware of the things that we do in the town of Neepawa, but I hope now they're aware as well of the things that we do outside and some of the ways that we do support the Rotary Foundation with Paul Harris Fellows. And we want to thank very much the people who have been honored with a Paul Harris Fellow from the Neepawa Rotary Club. We hope you appreciate it, and we hope that you appreciate how much we appreciate how much you have done for the community of Neepawa. With that, I'm going to end, and thank you for watching the Neepawa Rotary Update.